Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for staying here to the end of this conference. My name is Luizmar. I'm supervised by Dr. Chayok and Dr. Oscar Nestor. And the topic of my talk today is defining old-growth forests with airborne LiDAR. So this is how my presentation is going to go. I'm just going to give a brief introduction of old-growth forests and the problematics behind it, my research questions, materials and method that I'm using here, and the results. If I still have some time, a bit of applications and my final conclusions. So to start, what are old-growth forests? The short answer is that so many definitions out there, but all the definitions, if you're a forester, you would look at old-growth forests in a way. If you're a biologist, in another way. If you're part of community or First Nations, you would look into old-growth forests in a totally different way. But all of them gravitate around having old trees and some structures that only like old forests would have, such as coarser debris, multiple layers, and some ecosystems functions. Right now there's a lot of debate on old-growth forests, and it's mostly driven by the social aspect, like aesthetics and the spirituality behind it. But if you really want to do a successful management strategy, you need to have the ecological part of it as well. That's what I want to go for. So why should we care about old-growth forests at all? Old-growth forests, forests that have this reach the latest stage of development, they attain certain attributes. They're very important and critical for biodiversity. So lots of plant communities, animals, and fungi, it's very crucial for them to have certain attributes that only old-growth forests would have. But not only that, it's really important for us. There are some benefits that we receive directly from forests and old-growth forests. Such as climate regulation, water, carbon storage, carbon sink, and other more abstract service, like I said, spirituality, aesthetics, recreation. There are all these values that these forests give it to us. So now we know a little bit what old-growth forests are. We know their importance, but what is the problem then? What's going on with them? They are a rare resource worldwide, and they're in decline. It's not a BC problem, it's not a Canada problem, it's a world problem. Here in Canada and BC, those forests, they're mostly classified based on age, and there is like inherited high cost when you use those, when you try to go and get estimates of age. And some authors have pointed out that those estimates actually don't capture important attributes for old-growth forests. And to add another layer of complexity to the problem, you also have a huge diversity of old-growth forests out there. So if you go to Vancouver, to BC, coastal BC, you see like those very big, thick cedar trees. Not very far from here, if you go to the ancient forest as well. If you get there, you know, like in an older environment, you can see like with those trees, so much moss going on. But there are other types of old-growth forests as well. And here in northern interior, because of disturbances and replacing disturbances, though they have less distinguishable attributes. So, but that doesn't mean those old-growth forests are not important. They're still important. They're just less distinguishable. And so some authors have pointed out the need for us to create an index. So instead of using the age classes, something that's fixed, use something that you can capture this continuous nature of the forest instead of just put them in fixed classes. So there we go. That's my question then. Can we define and map old-growth forests using LiDAR? Can we create this index to better capture these values on the landscape? We'll see. So this is my study site. It's called Chinook Community Forest. It is northwest from here, around Burns Lake. The interesting part of this community forest for me is that it was created from the partnership of 6 First Nations and 2 municipalities. So even though the driving force of this management is fiber, they still care about other ecosystem services. And how am I going to do to measure that? I'm using LiDAR. So LiDAR is a remote sense technique. I'm not sure how Ben was collecting his, but in my case, it's the LiDAR sensor is attached to an airplane. And so once it flies over, it emits these beams. That once it reaches the surface, is reflected back to the sensor, and we get the sensor records X, Y, and Z values for each return. So we get this massive point cloud. Then we can get very good estimates of forests. But I don't spend my whole time just like behind in front of a computer typing codes. I also get to go to the forest and do some forest measurements. So for example, I do DPH, which is the diameter, grass height, collect heights, and we estimate age with cores. So we take 3 cores out of the dominant trees, of dominant species, and we do the growth ring counts to get estimates of age. And a bunch of other estimates for each tree. So it's very labor-intensive work. We did 102 plots in Chinook Community Forest. So now it's the fun part. How am I going to combine all this field work with this LiDAR metrics and get good information out of it? For that, I'm using random forest models. It's a machine learning statistical model, as most statistical models have to have response variables and predicting variables. So in my case, I'm using 2 different models. The first one, I'm using age classes as response variables, and the LiDAR delivered metrics as my predicting variables. And the second model is old growth index, and the same, having LiDAR as predicting variables. Just to break down a little bit more those the part of the models, the building blocks. So age, because we're in the northern tier forests, my study site is. It's considered old growth over 140 years old. So I have these age classes that I got from Clean Road. And for the old growth index, I use age, of course, because it is an important predictor, but other old growth attributes, such as maximum height, canopy cover, vertical complexity, volume, biomass, coarse field degrees. So I scaled them all 0 to 1, summed them up, and created this index that gets like an abundance of old growth attributes instead of just age. And the predicting variables, I have 35 metrics derived from the LiDAR. So maximum height as well, canopy cover, I have an restored density, and many other metrics. Okay, so what do I have so far for this? This plot here, I only want you to notice that this is the age classes, age classification for to the minister. As you can see, it doesn't really tease apart old growth forests from the other forest successions. They're really like merging all together around have the similar means. It's not very different. And that's because when you go to the field and do age estimates, you, as I mentioned, you get a dominant tree out of dominant species. And sometimes those could be just remnants from previously extent disturbance events. So even though you're in a plot that you should classify it as young, but you're measuring a tree that's very old. I have 1 or 2 trees that are very old and classified as old growth. And that's why it creates this, it's very hard to tease apart. But once I use an old growth index, I can see that it has a linear relation with all the old growth attributes, even age. So it's really capturing this continuous nature of the forest. It's doing a good job in predicting all of that. But so this is all for plot level so far. I have estimates for each of those red dots that you can see here. But if I want to do management decisions, I want to know what I have on the landscape, not just on those plots. And that's where LiDAR and random forest will go in. So from those models that I created using age classes and old growth index and LiDAR-derived metrics, I created two different maps. One for age classification and one what I used the old growth index. So here on the top most I have the age classification, and here I have the old growth index. And basically just the blue parts are what I would classify as old growth. So we went there to visit a couple of plots to see if what we saw on the map so we can actually see on the ground. And here, like if you see this plot, we went there and that's the image we got. So this map age classification was classified as mature extent. And with the old growth index, it was telling me that it has a very high value for old growth. And once we got there, the forest actually looked like an old growth forest. Had all those values that we were expecting old growth forest would have in here. But regarding the models, the model for each class didn't do very well. It had like around 46% error, which is pretty high. But our old growth index, it did pretty well, fit the model, and it had 72% of explained variation, which is pretty good for the model. So now back into my question. Can we define a map of old growth forest using LiDAR? So the answer is yes, we can. Now that we have this map, what I have areas with very low values for old growth, and I have in blue here the areas with very high values for old growth forest. So I'm not talking about this as old growth, I say this has very high value for old growth. What we can do with that? We can assess the amount and quality of old growth forests in the landscape. We can assess the current old growth management areas. So OGMAs, if you're not aware of, it's just this legal boundary that we have to have on the landscape to set aside old growth forests. So we can assess if they're doing their job. And I can use that to select old growth forests instead of just using age classes, selecting them based on value, old growth value. Just to show a little bit what I did, I got this map of old growth index, and I checked like let's see how forests are doing there in Burns Lake, Chinook Community Forest. So in the landscape, I saw that 25% of landscape is covered by forests with high value for old growth. And if I look only inside the OGMAs, this goes up to 46%. So the OGMAs are doing a good job, are retaining old growth forests, or forests with high value for the growth. And when I look only at OGMAs, I see that's like 50-50, so 50% of the OGMAs have high coverage of forests with old growth values, and 50% have low coverage of old growth forests. And this information, we'll give this information to the managers, and it's that their decision what to do with that. For my first conclusions, I see that the age classes, they do not separate well the old growth attributes. But the old growth index has a linear relationship with the old growth attributes, which is pretty good. The random forest model that I did for age classes, it didn't do very well, but with the index, it was a good model. It was predicting 72%, around 72% explained variation. And as a final message, this old growth index, it can capture the continuous nature of the forest. And it provides us with this opportunity to measure forest, not in terms of age, but in terms of old growth values, in terms of old growth attributes. So thank you. Obrigado. If you have any questions, here.
short break. We could have time for a question or so if there are some. Yeah.
Cool, Doc. I'm interested if you go back a couple of slides to your breakdown of the pie chart.
Breakdown of what?
The next pie chart. So that's 3%. That's saying that only 3% of the forest is classified as 75 to 100.
Yeah, only 3% of the old augments, they have like coverage higher than 75%, yeah. And 3%.
I know you might not know the answer to this, but from someone who doesn't, who loves going in the forest but doesn't know much about forestry, if like the ancient forest park, would that be one of those? Would that fall into a 3%? I mean, I know this it's not in this area, but if you classify the ancient forest or something like that, would it be in the 75 to 100 range, or?
Yeah, yeah.
If you took this is an awesome method, and old growth is a really hot topic right now, so very interesting to see. But if you were to move around, like take the exact same workflow you have and drop it somewhere else in the province, do you see any challenges with different species or closer to the coast, or do you think that there is maybe a solution that can use some large area mapping from one workflow?
Mm-hmm. So what I've been working right now is with 120,000 hectares. So it's a very fine scale once you compare with BC or other scales, right? But yes, if you want to shift that around, you'd have to know where the late succession species there and create this old growth index based on that environment before you scaled up with LiDAR. But I do see applications of that for other areas because it's really specific for the area you're working with. So I'm saying here that in Chinook Community Forest, those blue areas are areas where you have high values for old growth. That doesn't mean this old growth here is comparable with old growth in another place, right? But yeah, I do see this using this workflow in other environments as possible.
Very cool, thank you.